How are you, learners? Welcome to Grade 10. I am Sir Romel T. Moreno, your teacher in English. Before we get started, I would like to clarify that the general objective of today's lesson deals with getting information from various sources in everyday life. Information is available data everywhere, can be found in various platforms and means such as news reports, speeches, informative talks, and panel discussions, among others. Getting information will basically expose you not only in a full of information, but should also help you identify which details are factual and not. You are expected to identify certain details from different sources and use them in various contexts. Now, to begin our first lesson in English 10 for the first quarter, this is information from various sources. To begin with, let's start with the learning task 1. In one whole sheet of intermediate pad, copy the statements below. So remember, ang sasagutan ay one whole sheet of intermediate pad. Hey, after you copy, assess yourself as to how you personally deal with the information you encounter. Place a check in every statement that applies to you. First, I try to determine if the content in an article is worth knowing and relevant. Next, I assess the content through its relatedness in importance in my future goals. I appreciate the content of a text because it fits my plan in life. Then, I evaluate the information presented in every printed materials that I read, particularly those which affect my personal views. Next, I compare the information I read to my previous learnings. I value the content in current reading articles because I have experienced that before and I have learned from it. Next, I am affected by personal speeches and discussions as I choose my career goals. Last, I apply what I have learned from articles and discussions in every aspect of my life, making me a better individual. Okay, now we are done with the learning task 1. So, we are moving on with your learning task 2, which is identify if the given item is a primary, secondary, or tertiary source. Again, write your answers in one whole sheet of intermediate pad. Number 1, encyclopedia. Number 2, interview with a politician. Number 3, State of the Nation address or the Sona of the President. Number 4, the indices or the catalogs. Number 5, bibliography. Number 6, history of Tayabas. Number 7, court hearing. Number 8, references. Number 9, EDSA People Power Picture. And number 10, bibliography. Okay. For the next task, read the news report below, published by the GMA News Online on July 27, 2020. In one whole sheet of intermediate pad, answer the questions that follow. So here is the script of the news report. Roque. Duterte to deliver SONA at Batasan even as some expected attendees tested positive for COVID-19. President Rodrigo Duterte will still deliver his fifth State of the Nation address at the Batasang Pambansa even as some individuals expected to attend the event have contracted COVID-19, Malacanang said Monday. As of 2:30 p.m., President Duterte is expected to deliver his fifth SONA at Batasan, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said in a message to reporters. Roque issued the statement after House Deputy Speaker Johnny Pimentel and at least 6 palace personnel who were supposed to render technical support during the SONA tested positive for COVID-19. Only those who will test negative for COVID-19 will be allowed to attend the SONA, physically based on the event's safety protocols. Earlier, it was reported that cabinet executives who tested negative are attending the SONA at the Batasan. Secretaries Menardo Guevara, Justice, Wendell Abisado, Budget and Management, and Delphine Lorenzana, Defense, as well as Presidential Spokesperson Harry Roque. Secretaries Eduardo Año, Interior and Local Government, and William Dar, Agriculture, as well as Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles, will also be present during the event. According to a separate report by DZW's Tuesday Neo, Duterte will deliver his SONA before a joint session of Congress at 4 p.m. Now, here is short questions to answer. So remember, you have to answer this in one whole sheet of pad paper. So the questions were as follows. Number 1, what is the news report all about? Number 2, where does the information come from? And number 3, is the information primary, secondary, or tertiary? So what do you think? And then explain your answer. So now, after you answer some series of activities, let me discuss what are the sources of information. Although you in yourself, you should have to read it alone, or you have to analyze and understand what are the sources of information. Alright, just follow me. There are various sources of information that you may use in finding significant details in data that can be used in your daily life. Sources of information may be classified as primary, secondary, and tertiary sources. The context of information presented in a source is helpful in classifying information. Now, the first source of information is the primary sources. These sources of information are classified as primary if they are authentic and have not been subjected to evaluation or assessment. So remember, the word authentic. When we say primary sources, it should be authentic. Okay. These report discoveries, share of information, and first-hand. These informations written at a certain time or period of research. Okay. Definition of primary sources vary depending on the context and or disciplines. Some examples of primary sources are speeches, video recordings, photographs, government records communication, the news reports, magazine portraying information from eyewitnesses. The second source of information is the secondary sources. Secondary sources provide information, discussion, and or interpretation of the evidence. Remember, kung kanina, when I say primary, it should be authentic, original. In the secondary, it is the interpretation of the original or the authentic information. These are usually evaluation as primary sources, sabi ko nga kanina. These are also information written by authors who do not personally witness the event or action. Again, definition of secondary sources vary depending on the context in all disciplines. So some examples of secondary sources are the commentaries, critics, evaluations, history. Journals, magazines, which not portraying information from eyewitnesses. Okay, the last, tertiary sources. It serves as collection of primary and secondary sources. So, ito yung mga examples. Andiyan yung bibliographies, directories, abstracts, dictionary, almanac, indexes, encyclopedias, and databases. There are 6 characteristics of information. So remember, we have 6 characteristics of information. Number 1, accuracy. When you say accuracy, information should be reliable, useful, and free from flaws and of high quality. So hindi siya basta-basta, haka-haka lamang. It should be reliable. Number 2, completeness. Information should provide all needed details. It should be able to answer the WH questions plus H. So ito yung mga what, who, when, where, why, and how. Number 3 is timeliness. Information should be up to date. So those informations from sinasabi natin 19 kupong-kupong, so probably it should be it is revised, it should be updated to make it information or to make it a characteristic of information. Okay. Number 4, consistency. Information should be consistent for it to be considered accurate and useful. So kung kanina accurate, para maging consistent naman siya, yung information from the primary going to secondary and going to tertiary, it should be consistent, which is consistent siyang accurate. Walang pagbabago dun sa information. Number 5, relevant. Information should suit the demand, needs, and interests of the readers. And last, number 6, uniqueness. Information should be distinct. Dapat din ay unique. Alright, so naunawa na ang tinatawag nating primary sources of information. Now, here is the additional task for you to understand deeply our lesson. For your learning task 4, read Bliss Abraham Lincoln's The Gettysburg Address below. Then, answer the questions that follow. Again, write your answers in one whole sheet of intermediate part. Okay, let me read you the content. 70 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final testing place for those who gave their lives that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But, in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little know nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from this onward dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that this dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, that we here highly resolve that this dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, in that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. So those are the follow-up questions. Number 1, is the information primary, secondary, or tertiary? And then after you answer, explain why. Number 2, how many years do 7 years mean? Number 3, what greatest concern or emergency was mentioned by Lincoln in his speech? Number 4, explain Lincoln's message when he said that government is of the people, by the people, and for the people. Last, number 5, what do you think was the occasion being celebrated when Lincoln delivered this speech? Then explain your answer. For your next learning task 5, using a dictionary entry below, discuss what information it can provide to readers. So again, write your answers in one whole sheet of intermediate pad. Number 1 is beadle. It is a noun. Singular, beadle, plural, beetles, meaning an insect of an order distinguished by 4 wings, typically modified into hard wings cases, etc., that cover and protect the hind wings and abdomen. Sentence: I used to collect beetles from our mango tree during my childhood days. The second beetle is a verb. Third person present beetles. Past tense, beetled. Past participle, beetled also. And gerund present participle, beetling. Meaning, make one's way hardly or with short, quick steps. Example sentence: Ethan and Chan beetled on their way to the office. They were almost late. Alright, for your learning task 6, give examples of sources of information based on the classifications below. So remember, we have 3 classifications of sources of information. We have primary sources, secondary sources, and tertiary sources. So all your answers, you have to write it in one whole sheet of intermediate pad. Take note, learners. Some examples given in our previous discussion, it should not be included. So you have to think another example of sources of information. Give at least 3 primary sources, 3 secondary sources, and 3 tertiary sources. Okay, get it? Now, for your learning task 7, you have to get a copy of any news article written in English. Write it or paste it in one whole sheet of intermediate pad. Then, provide an analysis on what significant information are provided in the said article. Also, write at least 5-sentence summary of the article. So, you have to follow the rubric below for your scoring or for your grading. Take note of this rubric. We have 4 ratings, 4 points, 3 points, 2 points, and 1 point. Okay, we have the criteria: length, accuracy, paraphrasing, focus, and conventions. So let's start with length. Let me explain. You will get 4 points if you have 6 to 8 or started with 5 sentence. So yung task natin is also, ang task mo is write a 5-sentence summary of the article. Ngayon, makuha mo 4 points mula ka sa 5 to 8 sentences. 3 points naman, it is only 9 sentences. 2 points kapag 10 sentences, and 1 point kapag 11 plus sentences. 10 sentences. Paraphrasing. 4 points kapag no more than 4 words in a row taken directly from story. So it means dapat ay hindi sobra sa 4 na salita sa kada linya dun sa news article na iyong kukunin. Okay. 3 points naman kapag one sentence contains more than 4 words sa pagka 4 pataas. At 2 points naman kapag 2 sentences contains more than 4 words in a row taken directly from the story or the article. And 1 point kapag 3 plus sentences more than 4 words in a row taken directly from the story. Next criteria, focus. Summary consists of main idea and important details only. 4 points yun. 3 points kapag summary contains main idea and some minor details. 2 points naman kapag summary contains main idea and only minor details. And 1 point kapag main idea of story is not discussed. The last conventions or the writing mechanics. 4 points pagka no more than 1 punctuation, grammar or spelling error. And 3 points kapag naman 2 to 3 punctuation, grammar or spelling errors. And 2 points pagka 4 to 5 punctuation, grammar or spelling errors. And 1 point kapag 6 plus punctuation, grammar or spelling errors. Right. Your last task. Search and watch President Rodrigo Duterte's Fifth State of the Nation delivered on July 27, 2020. Analyze and identify the important information discussed in his SONA. SONA's transcript, which is available online, may also be used. Write your answers in one whole sheet of intermediate pad. Okay, so that's it. This is our lesson for today. I will repeat. All your learning tasks should be written in one whole sheet of intermediate pad. Remember. Now, before I leave this presentation, let me read this quotation. In quizzes, it is acceptable to have more questions than answers. In quizzes, there is no room for not invented here. In quizzes, we should all be learners. So sinabi to ni Princess Laurentian of the Netherlands. So it means, although we are in the pandemic COVID-19, which is we are experiencing trying times. So my fellow students, I hope na you and yourself will study at home safely, follow the safety protocols. Whatever happen, answer all the possible, answer the activities given. So good luck and see you for our next lesson.